Okay, here's week 6 warm-up. So if you did not make a 70% or better, please copy these problems down and turn it into me by Tuesday after the break. So you can stop this video at any time. So number 1 was a adding problem. It said 55 plus 10 plus 7 plus 10. First thing I like to do always is I like to put a decimal behind them and go ahead and line up my decimals. That's one of the things I always like to do. I also like to add a 0 there. So now I'm going to go ahead and add. So when I add 5 plus 0 plus 7, I get 12. When I add 1 plus 5 plus 1 plus 1, I get 8. So your answer to this problem is 82. Okay, the second one, subtraction. I do the same thing. I put my decimals. I like to line them up, and I'm going to subtract. So as I subtract, I can do 5 minus 0, which is 5, 7 minus 4, which is 3. So my answer for this problem is 35. Okay, number 3, it said 12 times 4 plus 8. So I'm going to go ahead and multiply 12 times 4 first, which I get 48. So I'm going to say 48 plus 8, which is 56. So my answer is 56. Okay, number 4 is probably the hardest one. It was division. So make sure you please set this up correctly. This says 450 divided by 8. Remember, I like to put my decimals, move it up to the quotient. So the first thing I'm going to do is look at my problem. Does 8 go into 4? The answer is no. Put a 0. Bring down the 5. Does 8 go into 45? The answer is yes. It would be 5 times, which is 40. Does 8 go into 50? The answer is yes. Be 6 times, which is 48. Now at this point, I cannot just leave it there, so I have to put the 0 and bring it down. Does 8 go into 20? The answer is yes. 2 times, which is 16. That leaves me a 4, and I'm running out of room, so I'm going to put it right up here. Okay, so I have to add another 0, which is 40. And does 8 go into 40, which is 5, which is 40. So that's my answer, is right up here, 56 and 25 hundredths. I did not like how that worked out with me moving it over, so I'm going to do it again. So I'm going to do everything again for number 4. Does 8 go into 4? No. Put the 0 up there, 0, 4. Bring down the 5. Does 8 go into 45? The answer is yes. It's 5 times, which is 40. Bring down the 0. Does 8 go into 50? Yes, 6 times, 48, 2. Remember, add the 0, bring it down. Does 8 go into 20? 2 times, which is 16. This is where I kind of messed up last time. Get the 4, bring it down 0. Does 8 go into 40? Yes, 5 times, which is 40. So my answer, again, is 56 and 25 hundredths. Okay, number 5 was fractions. So what you need to remember when you're adding fractions is you must have the same denominator, which is the bottom number. So if I have the same denominator, I'm going to keep that denominator of 7, and I'm just going to add my numerators. So 5 plus 3 plus 1 is 9. So 9/7 is my improper answer, but remember we want it as a mixed number. So I have to divide it out. So 7 goes into 9 one time with 2 left over, and I go clockwise, so 1 and 2/7 is the answer there. Okay, number 6. Again, I'm subtracting fractions, so I must have the same denominator, which I do, and it's 6. So this time I just subtract the numerator. So 5 minus 2 is 3. And at this point, I have my fraction 3/6, but remember, I always got to simplify my fractions. So I can probably put it in my sled if you don't know what to do, and we've done the sled. So what goes into 3 and 6? 3. 3 goes into 3 one time, 3 goes into 6 two times, so my answer is 1/2. Either way, you're going to divide by the greatest common factor and still get 1/2. So whatever you feel like doing to help you out. Okay, I am multiplying fractions for number 7. I do not need a common denominator. I can just multiply straight across and then simplify. Or if you like to simplify before you multiply, you can do that. I like to simplify first, which I notice 4/8 is equal to 1/2. 5/10 is equal to 1/2. And as I do this, I do 1 times 1 is 1. Not sure if this copied, but I am simplifying my fractions 4/8 and 5/10. 4/8 to 1/2, 5/10 to 1/2. 1 times 1 is 1. 2 times 2 is 4. So my answer is 1/4. Now, if you don't like doing it that way, you can do it the longer way that you're more familiar with by just multiplying straight across. 4 times 5 is 20. 8 times 10 is 80. And now I'm going to have to simplify it anyways. I can put it in my sled. 20 and 8, what goes into that? Well, I'm going to start with a 10 because I know it ends in a 0. 2 and 8. What goes into 2 and 8? I know 2 goes into 2 one time, 2 goes into 8 4 times. Either way, I'm going to get 1/4 as an answer. Okay, number 8 was dividing fractions. You got to remember your KCF when you're dividing fractions. So KCF, you keep the first fraction, change to multiplication, flip the second fraction. Now I just follow my multiplication rules, and I'm going to say 4 times 2 is 8. 7 times 3 is 21. And what goes into 8 and 21? The only thing that goes into 8 and 21 is 1. So this is my simplified answer right there. Okay, number 9 was a ratio problem. And I've told you guys if you put it in a table, it would make it a lot easier. So it says a bag contains red apples and yellow apples. That's why I wrote down red and yellow. It says the ratio of red apples to yellow apples is 9 to 4. And then it's asking you, out of the questions, which one would be true. Well, if I follow my table and start filling in the blanks, I know 9 times 2 is 18. 4 times 2 is 8. And I can almost stop right there and look at the answer B, because B says there are exactly 18 red apples and 8 yellow apples. So my answer for this problem is B. Remember, make a table. And for number 10, this was really your vocabulary. It says which statement is false, and you had 4 statements there. The first one, A, says a ratio is a comparison of 2 numbers that uses division. That is correct, so it cannot be right. B, a rate compares 2 quantities that have different units of measures. That is correct, so it cannot be right, because we're looking for what's false. C, equivalent ratios are ratios that name a different or unequal ratio. That is incorrect. And then D, when the comparison is to 1 unit, it's called a unit rate. That is correct. So my answer to number 10 is C. Remember, make sure you put your name on this, put warm-up 6, and give it to me by Tuesday.